Hi everyone, welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm joined by Alex today, and we're going to be going over Everton's 1-0 defeat to Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday. Alex, there's so much to talk about, mate, so we'll just get straight into it. Going into this one, 0 points from two games. This was, in a lot of people's eyes, a must-win game already early on in the season. What were your thoughts going into it?
Um, I think my main thoughts going into it were basically that it was going to go down basically how it did. I think most people saw both us and Wolves have like historically struggled for goals for a while now. And neither of us had really made any forward reinforcements in the window. Obviously, as of now, that's hopefully going to change for on our side of things. But we all knew that both of us were like struggling in front of goal, and it was probably going to be a case of whoever scored first were just going to nick it 1-0, and it was going to be a game like that. And so it was imperative, like similarly, that we did differently to Fulham, and that we made the most of our chances, maybe got an early goal and settled a few nerves down, and then hopefully we were able to defend that lead. And the longer it went on, I think the more worried a lot of us got, and as it transpired, yeah, like you say, they end up nicking it in the end. Just basically how a lot of us thought it was going to go down in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it was going into it was a case of what was going to give because I don't think Wolves had started particularly well either. Um, I mean, I think they did have glimmers of hope coming into the season, obviously with Gary O'Neill coming in so quickly before the start of the season. Um, I think, as you mentioned, it was gonna be a case of keeping some of the things from the Fulham game right, but obviously just having that extra little bit of quality in the final third. And I think the game on the whole went a little bit just very similar to the Fulham game. As soon as Wolves scored, I think everyone just went, "Yeah, this is a carbon copy of the Fulham game." Played well for 60, 70 minutes, and towards the end, just tired legs resulted in a lack of good defending, and obviously Wolves were able to nick it with that goal. So of course, go from the Aston Villa game. Not only was there injuries, there was also questions over who was going to start. There's been a lot of talk about Sean Dyche's affiliations with Michael Keane and how much he believes in Michael Keane, whereas a lot of fans were, pushing for a change in the lineup. What was your reaction to it?
I was surprised by the lineup, to be honest. I saw a lot of people floating around that a lot of changes need to be made, obviously, understandably, after such a poor performance against Aston Villa. But I think Dyche historically has been, I guess the word to say is stubborn in his lineups, and often, persisting with players that the fans don't want to see. Michael Keane being a prime example. I thought there was maybe a chance that Brantford might start, but I thought that was probably going to be the only change, if any, apart from obviously Calvert-Lewin and Iwobi getting replaced due to their injuries. But seeing Dobbin start, I thought was very surprising. Dyche just again not been too keen on giving on like throwing youth into the equation. But like I say, it was Dobbin and Danjuma both starting. No Maupay, no Keane. And so that immediately, I think, gave everyone a bit of a boost as opposed to the lineup being announced before Fulham, when there was obviously questions over whether Calvert-Lewin or not was going to start, and then obviously seeing Maupay and seeing Keane was a bit of a downer. So I think the lineup was probably what a lot of people wanted to see, and obviously it's just a shame that it didn't quite work out in the way people wanted it to.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was really, really optimistic after seeing the lineup, seeing Branthwaite and Dobbin in from the start, seeing Chimiti on the bench, and it seemed to be a little bit more like what we'd asked for. Do you think that having obviously you mentioned Lewis Dobbin there came in? Do you think that Sean Dyche's hand was forced to play him there because of obviously our not in the squad, but our lack of out and out wingers with Dwight McNeil injured. Jack Harrison's not ready to come in yet. Iwobi was injured. Ashley Young playing at left back. Do you think his hand was forced to play Lewis Dobbin purely because of the system that he likes to play? We know he's very, very fond of that that 4-5-1 formation. Do you think he was forced to do that, or do you think he genuinely? Because I thought Dobbin played well when he came on against Aston Villa. Do you think it was a case of, okay, I'm going to give this lad a chance, or just a case of trying to minimise the threat of having a square peg in a round hole, as it were, which is what we've seen so much?
I think it was a bit of both, really, to be honest. I mean, I was expecting Danjuma to be put on the left and Morpay to start up front, a bit more of a natural striker, as opposed to kind of, I guess you could say, like square peg in round holes. But um, giving Dobbin the start, I thought was probably quite a good move. To be fair, again, like you say, played well when he came on against Villa. A lot of energy, a lot of positivity more than anything. To be honest, when he got on the ball, he wanted to drive at the Wolves' defense. Cause a bit of chaos or whatever. And for a while, he was doing quite well at that. I think he kind of lost his way a little bit, which is to be understood. Not used to playing, the heavy pace of the Premier League compared to playing in League One like he was last season. It's obviously going to be a big jump for him, and he was almost never really intended to see the match out. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting decision. And like I say, I think there was maybe a bit too much of an issue with him and Danjuma kind of trying to play the same role almost. With both of them basically being natural left wingers cutting in, but also like having played at striker before, they were kind of just getting in each other's way a little bit too much, I thought at times. And but
Mm.
yeah, like I say, I think it was probably the right decision to give Dobbin a go. While like you say, our winger options are in such short supply as they are at the moment.
I'd agree with that because I think there can be a case of they're both great, really good players. I think they're both, when they have played this season, they've been two of the best parts of the team, especially against Aston Villa when Dobbin, when Danjuma came on. Danjuma came on against Fulham as well and did okay. I don't know how fit he was, but I would have probably liked to see Chimiti start up front because I think when he was more of a threat. He was more unknown to the Wolves' defence when he came on, and I feel like with Danjuma or Dobbin, they would have had someone to aim for up front, really. So the first half, I thought we started the game okay, started pretty well. It was a little bit scrappy in the first half. There was chances. There was obviously the one that came off the post. What did you make of the first half performance? Because I think it can be said that the performance necessarily was not bad at all in the first half, but people, as you said, the longer it went on, it started to become more obvious that these were gonna score at some point.
Yeah, like I said, it was a case of almost deja vu, I guess, from Fulham. I think the more it was going on, the more I was starting to worry that if we leave it too long if we leave it too long to score, they're going to make the necessary changes to go ahead and nick this. And like I said, as soon as we fall behind, we won't score because like if Wolves have no intention of scoring, they'll put everyone behind the ball and we just won't be able to break them down. Um, and so yeah, like you say, as the first stop went on, um, I'd probably say we didn't. It was an odd one because I think we I guess dominated the game more than we did against Fulham, but didn't quite create as many good chances in a weird sort of way. I actually think in the Fulham game we didn't start particularly well. I think the first 15 minutes or so, Fulham were quite lively, and causing us a little issues, and we were kind of hitting them on the break a little bit more. And then we had a good spell of pressure towards the end of the first half where we had several chances. You think of the Morpay ones that fell to him and that. Um, and I think the Corey also had a really good chance as well. Whereas Wolves, the chances weren't quite as clear cut, especially in the first half. But at the same time, we were threatening, I think, a lot more and kind of knocking on the door a bit more. But at the same time, just no one to put it away really. And that's obviously something that we've recognised for a while. Really needs to be rectified.
Yeah, and then of course we go in at halftime 0-0. Come on for the second half, and in the second half, I think we knocked on the door a little bit more. There was more belief. Okay, we might take a point here. With I think probably about 5 or 10 minutes before the Wolves goal, I thought I'd take a point here because just to get some points on the board. But the second half, we came forward a little bit more. We looked like more of a threat. But it was just a case of Wolves getting the goal instead of us, and it was always going to be one of the teams that got the goal. So the second half for me, I think, was impressive in some ways coming out, and some of the link up play that we had, some of the chances, getting the ball to Dobbin on the wing more was good. Um, but again, it just we got undone by a little bit of bad defending, a lack of concentration. Would you say that?
Like I said, I think at the same time, while we were probably playing with a bit more confidence and maybe with a bit more impetus, I think Wolves were growing into the game a bit as well, and starting to think they could maybe hit us on the break and create a few things. You think of the disallowed goal where we got a little bit caught out and we got quite fortunate that Fabio Silva was offside, and then you think of that moment where the kind of miscommunication between Pickford and Tarkowski, and again Fabio Silva was in and probably should have scored. I think maybe Pickford maybe just about did enough to put him off and see him put it wide. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, like I say, they kind of just grew into the game a little bit more, and they also started to play with a bit more confidence. Obviously, they made changes a bit earlier than us. They brought what was it, Eight Nori on at half time. He seemed to change things up a bit more and give us something a bit more to worry about. Um, so yeah, like I say, it was kind of a case of us both like going for it a little bit more, and then obviously their changes just kind of um trumped ours, I guess, if you will, and being able to bring on a 6'7" striker to just send crosses into, and literally the first one they did, and he got his head on the end of it, and that was that.
Yeah, Kalajic with the goal. I mean, it was a quite similar goal to the Fulham one as well, wasn't it? But it comes across from the right hand side, gets whipped across goal, and it falls into the net. Sort of just a lack of picking up runners, a lack of I mean, I like Tarkovsky, but I don't think he started the season very well in terms of the leadership that we need at the back. Branthwaite did okay, but I think there has to be a bit. I think there has to be a bit more of a change in the style that we play, and a bit more of a bit more shielding on the defense. Because to me, Idrissa Gay looked completely lost in that formation, in that 4-5-1 at the weekend. He just was picking up balls in the wrong places. He was letting them go, and he shouldn't have. He was playing into Wolves players. Um, to me, there has to be a different role for Garner Gay coming up, and I think a lot of people could probably say that for Amadou Onana as well. Um, we've spoke about the Wolves goal. We've mentioned some of the downers from Saturday, but just a quick thought on players you thought played well, because for me, I mean, I think everyone. I don't think anyone played necessarily terribly. Um, but I wouldn't say anyone really stood out for me. No one stood out as a fantastic player. I was impressed with Branthwaite. I was impressed with Dobbin. Danjuma looked lively as well. But to me, I don't think any players really stood out and who could have won us the game. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think if you pushed me to like give a man of the match on our side, I think I'd say Decore. I think Decore had quite a bit of energy about him, and like I said, was trying to make things happen. But like I say, it's got to be a team effort of us, especially going forward. You need a lot of things to fall in place for us to get a goal. And obviously, again, he had another very good chance with that header. Maybe could have done better with. I don't know. I think on the other side of things, it was a very good save. And yeah, 9 times out of 10, that would probably have gone in. And if he just got a cleaner connection on it, there would have been nothing the keeper could have done about it in the first place. But yeah, I agree. I think Branthwaite looked pretty solid as a whole. I think only concerns to me with him is he seems a bit too left-footed for me. And if the ball gets to him on his right foot, I think we're so used to playing with right-footed centre backs that a lot of the passes he received were on his right foot, and he seemed to struggle to get them away and get them to a blue shirt, I guess. And yeah, again, similarly, I think Dobbin, like I say, looked lively and stuff, and especially in the first half was having quite a bit of an impact on the game. But as again, that kind of inexperience at this level, as I mentioned before, kind of like meant that kind of impact diminished as it went on. But yeah, like I say, no one, like you said, I agree completely. Really, no one played amazingly, no one played terribly. It just was a bit of a mere performance all around, really.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because to me, I thought it was for Decore. I don't think he necessarily played well. He didn't really make too many errors, but for me, he seemed a little bit missing in the first half. it seemed as though he was sort of chasing shadows for a lot of the game, and I think that came down to having three similar players in midfield. Even though Decore is the more attacking of those three, I think that there was he was able to turn, he was able to find a pass on the counter attacks in the first half. But to me, he didn't strike me as his usual self. I'm usually quite confident when Decore gets on the ball, and I think having him playing a little bit further forward as that linking point between the striker and the midfield is a good thing, and I think he's good at that. But to me on Saturday, it just didn't seem to be quite up to it. But of course, I think that's completely up to debate and up to whoever watched the game, for you to make your own judgment on it, because I think he was one of them. Didn't necessarily play well, didn't necessarily play bad, and that's what we're trying to sort of get home here. Is that it was a very a half and half performance from pretty much every player. Um, and we'll stay on Abdoulaye Doucouré as well, because as you mentioned there, he did have a goal chalked off. Some good feet from it. It was a nice little finish. When it went in, there was always a feeling that it might have been ruled out for offside. But what was your thoughts on it? Because it was a nice little finish from him, and he's proved that he can pop up with the odd goal here and there, can't he?
Yeah, like I say, I think maybe it was a case of like he kind of grew into the game a bit. Like I say, I think you saying that does actually strike me. I think, like you say, he didn't have too much of an impact in the first half. I think you're probably right in saying that. And then in the second half, yeah, I think maybe just seems to be trying to make things happen a bit more, maybe. And I thought, I mean, he just needs someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck, I guess. And I guess maybe he saw it himself as the one who could maybe do that. And like you say. Like I say, it looked like he popped up with the winner at one point, and it was quite a nicely worked goal, I thought, in the end. And like you say, it was just unfortunate that it was short off, like you say.
Yeah. One player who I was slightly disappointed with, and it comes down to one major point that I think sort of stuck us from getting a winner, was the set pieces. And Ashley Young was obviously on those set pieces on Saturday, and it just I think it'd be a good idea to probably take him off him and give them to someone else, because every single one was straight down Jose Sar's throat, wasn't it?
Yeah, frustrating, very frustrating. And I think more to the point, it especially in the second half, it seemed to be leaving us vulnerable on the break as well. With him being on the set pieces, and remember at least one point, with Pedro Neto, being as dangerous as he is running down the right, if as you say, with most of them landing in Sar's hands, that meant Wolves were able to break pretty quickly and get down the pitch. And it was more than one occasion. I think I remember Neto running down the right, and it was Dan Juma being left to deal with him. Obviously, the least natural defender in the world, really. And I'll say it could have done with Ashley Young being there to shield them. Like I say, we set pieces have been such a like frustration for us for a while now. We just don't, and I think you go back to the days of since James Rodriguez and Gylfi Sigurdsson. Really, we haven't really had a natural set piece taker. Luca Digne, I guess, as well. You could say, all of them have long gone, and we just haven't really got anyone in the squad now who can take a good one. I think for a while we thought maybe James Garner was going to be that, but his have been poor lately as well. So yeah, I said we could really do with someone who can put a good ball in. And more to the point, it probably should be a midfielder, so that, as I mentioned there, it leaves us less vulnerable if the corner does go wrong and the team try and hit us on the break.
I think not even just a case of who's taking them. I think there needs to be a bit more work in the box. Maybe I think we seen it last week with Aston Villa. I seen a team do it last week. I can't remember who it was, with a really good routine with that. With like having that. We've seen it so much with teams who might so many more out of the ordinary routines with things like set pieces,
It, it,
long.
it was it was Villa, wasn't it? They were taking them short every time and playing it to the one on the edge of the box, and we just couldn't deal with it. They did it about 4 or 5 times, and we just had no idea who to mark,
Yeah,
where to go, or anything like that. Yeah, like you
I
say.
think they were doing that early on last week at Villa Park, and it sort of knocked us right. It winded us, that I think, early on, even though it was still 0-0. It winded us because we were immediately on the back foot. They were creating so many chances from it. Obviously, some substitutions to come on to try and change the game a little bit. Too little, too late. Yusuf Chimiti just a little word on him and the other substitutes because I thought Schmidt played well, but I just think until we have the likes of Jack Harrison in and hopefully Beto, who at the time of recording hasn't been announced yet, but seems to be quite close. Until there's someone really, a lot more squad depth, then I think we're going to struggle with changing the game late on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Chimiti, I think there was a lot of trying to pin a bit too much on him this week, obviously with no more striker reinforcements, as you say, and Calvert-Lewin going down injured yet again. Um, it left just him and Morpay as the only recognisable strikers in the squad. And obviously, I think everyone's long given up on Morpay. And so there was a lot of hope that this, by all accounts, very raw 19-year-old from Portugal would come in and be the hero this Saturday. And I'd like to think that, as you say, with Beto coming in now and hopefully Calvert-Lewin, once he's recovered from this freak injury that no one could have prepared for, will be able to stay a bit more fit this season and hopefully get a few more games than he has the last 2 years. It will take a lot more pressure off Schmidt and just allow him to develop a bit more, maybe even like play down in like the under-21s for a bit and get some regular minutes there, and just continue his development really rather than being thrust into the limelight and trying to create a hero out of a really young lad who's still developing really.
When he came up, it was like a Federico Makeda, wasn't he? I was thinking we're going to need something like that here. Just this completely unknown entity to come in and score a goal. But so the last thing we're going to talk about, where do we go from here? Sheffield United away next week. Going to be a tough game. We saw them play Manchester City. They played really well. Of course, these didn't end up taking anything from Man City, but then again, I don't think anyone will this season. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough one, and we'll preview that on the channel. But what would you like to see change? And I mean, how do we pick ourselves up? How do we actually get some points on the board? Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, it is literally just a case of being able to keep up this level of chance creation and just being able to have someone up front who can put them in. It might genuinely just be that simple. Like I say, we'd be hoping that Beto or Beto, whatever it is, will be registered and like signed up in time to play it on Saturday. Like I say, I think it's unlikely he'll be put in for the cup even if he is registered in time. But hopefully he's at a good enough level of fitness that he's ready to start on Saturday. And hopefully, like I say, it is just a case of being able to keep up this level of chance creation. Like I say, obviously, Sheffield United at Bramall Lane, they're going to be, really up for it and really keen to get their first points on the board. And they'll be looking at a match against us who are similarly struggling, and licking their lips, kind of probably our Wolves would have been doing last weekend. And the home crowd will be right up for it. We saw that against Man City, as you say. And so yeah, it'll be a case of how well can we cope with that really, and put in the level of performance that we have against both Fulham and Wolves, and rather than say a repeat of Aston Villa really.
Yeah, well, it doesn't get any easier. Obviously, there's Sheffield United at Bramall Lane, which is not a nice place to go. Doncaster Rovers in the cup, which you can catch our preview for that one on the channel coming soon. And then it's Arsenal at home, so it doesn't get any much easier. Typical old Everton, really. We're just again counting on ourselves to win games when we need them, putting ourselves under more pressure. But yeah, thanks for joining me on this one, Alex. It was a good one. Apart from the result, there was a lot to dissect there. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Leave your comments down below on what you thought of the match, and we'll see you in the next one.